Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jenica Birdsong and I am part of the Department of Marketing and Civic Engagement here at the City of Stillwater. My main role tonight is to kind of just take care of the Zoom and technology side of things. So I'm going to start with a couple of ground rules. It'll be the same thing as last time. I know I see some familiar names, where some of us right now are panelists and some are attendees. I'm going to go ahead and move everyone to attendee status for the duration of the presentation, which just means you'll be able to see and hear, but you won't have your own video or audio. And then whenever the presentation is over, I'm going to open up the floor for questions and answers. Well, Lisa will. And so once we do that, I'll ask everyone who wants to go ahead and speak to hit the raise hand button, and then I'll go ahead and re-promote you to a panelist so that you can share your video and audio and ask your questions. If you don't want to share your video or your audio, then we do have a Q&A section as well. I think that pretty much covers it. I'm going to copy and paste the instructions in the chat too. So if someone comes in later, they can see kind of the rules. But I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Lauren then.
Okay, thank you, Jenica. Good evening. I am Lauren Smith, your Electric Utility Director. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, as your input is valued and will help us decide a path forward. Our goal tonight is to provide education on community solar and renewable energy certificates. Lisa Vetter is here with LM Vetter Consulting to provide expert guidance. She has an extensive knowledge of our recent cost of service study and rate design in general. As your proud public power provider, we want to work to meet the needs of our customers as well as the utility. And with that, I will invite Lisa Vetter to begin her presentation.
Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everyone. We're really pleased you could join us for this Community Solar and Renewable Energy Certificate Workshop. My name is Lisa Vetter. I have about 30 years experience in the utility industry. I do cost of service, rates, regulatory support, financial planning support, financial analysis, power supply, and I also know a lot about alternative power production, power supply, natural gas, renewables. I have an undergrad in industrial engineering, Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I have a master's from Harvard in public administration. So we're pleased you could join us tonight. We're going to start with a little bit of overview and background of how this all came about and the process and the events that have led up to this. Then I'm going to talk a bit about community solar in general and the city's plan that they're considering. Then we're going to talk about renewable energy certificates. And finally, at the end, I'll present a timeline of where we're going from here, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So a little bit of background. In August of this year, the city did a flash vote on renewables, community solar, and renewable energy certificates. We also had a workshop on distributed generation on November 12th. That was pretty popular. That has a lot of background information. This is a complex topic. The electric industry in and of itself is quite complicated. So I encourage people, if you weren't at that session, to go to that video and also look at the primer, because it's got a lot of great background information in it. And the distributed generation survey is on that site, and that will be open until December 31st. The path forward for community solar and renewable energy credits starts with this workshop. Well, I kind of started with the flash vote in August, but this workshop kind of kicks things off formally. And then we'll again be taking input through the Speak Up Stillwater website. We want to hear what people think. And then based on all that, the city will make decisions about how to move forward. So a little bit of, to start with a level playing ground, what is community solar? Basically, community solar is a communal owned resource that is not near your house or home. Well, it could be near your home, but it's on a site probably owned by the city, where you are allowed to participate in owning a portion of that resource without having it on your home or in your, on your property and having to maintain and, deal with it. So it allows people to participate in a renewable resource, but without having to own it themselves. Renewable energy certificates are actually a market construct. It creates two commodities out of each kilowatt hour of energy produced by a renewable resource. One part of the commodity, one part of the equation is the commodity itself. The other part is the renewable aspect of the power that's generated. It's actually a certificate. It's like a stock, if you will. And then the renewable energy certificate allows you to participate in renewables virtually, in a sense. You're virtually creating a 100% renewable portfolio for your home if you want, regardless of where that power is produced and regardless of who actually serves you with power currently. So it's a way to create a market value for the renewable aspect of the energy generated. Each kilowatt hour that has a REC associated with it is unique. And once you buy or use a REC, it's retired. So to understand a little more, we need to look very high level at the total industry in and of itself. There's four primary functional sections of the electric industry. On the left, we start in the red with generation. That's power production. The blue to the next to that is the transmission. It's like the superhighway that moves bulk electricity produced all over the place to the distribution system. The distribution system steps down that power to a level that can come into your home or business safely. And then finally on the right, the customer function. For the city of Stillwater, generation and transmission is provided by the Grand River Dam Authority. They own the transmission and generation assets, and they deliver a bundled product to the city of Stillwater. The city of Stillwater provides distribution service and customer service. The city of Stillwater is considered a full requirements wholesale customer of the Grand River Dam Authority, which means that under the contract they have with the Grand River Dam Authority, they receive 100% of all their power needs from the Grand River Dam Authority, which in this aspect, the Grand River Dam Authority is working with the city of Stillwater to create opportunities for renewables, even though that displaces, like a community solar farm would displace a portion of the load that the city of Stillwater is buying from Grand River Dam Authority. So they are actually being very helpful through this process. The city of Stillwater provides distribution and customer service to its citizens. To understand the discussion around renewables, we decided that it's good to take a look at the power that Stillwater actually receives today. And what you'll see from these two graphs, since the city of Stillwater receives its energy from the Grand River Dam Authority, this is their 2019 power portfolio. This is a very progressive and very low carbon portfolio to begin with. You'll see that you have a lot of hydro, you have a lot of wind, you have a lot of natural gas, and then a little bit of coal. And then the orange piece of the pie is other power, and that's predominantly what Grand River Dam Authority buys from the Southwest Power Pool. So the pie chart on the right shows the Oklahoma mix for the Southwest Power Pool. And that too is a very, very relatively low carbon portfolio, 40% wind, 3% hydro, and then 46% natural gas. So starting off today, if the city did nothing, you already have quite a positive portfolio. It can always be improved, but it's good to know where you are today. And what's happening in the future. This slide shows the interconnection queue, which means people requesting, generators requesting access to the Southwest Power Pool and what type of resource they're going to install. So the pie chart on the left again is the 2019 Oklahoma profile of the Southwest Power Pool. The pie chart on the right shows what resources are planning to locate in and interconnect with the Southwest Power Pool. 58% wind, 29% solar, 6% storage, and then 3% natural gas, and then 4% other. So this is things are only getting better. It's a very positive portfolio from a carbon-based standpoint. And this represents over 131,000 megawatts of new capacity, primarily carbon-free. So let's talk a little bit about community solar. Again, whoops. The concept is that it's a shared resource, often referred to as a farm, where you can own a portion of it, and then that energy goes into the system and serves you. Why would you even do community solar? Well, it offers economies of scale. Larger installations of solar are much more economically efficient. It also provides one site where the developer can maintain the solar. It's easier from an interconnection standpoint. So there's a lot of operational and financial reasons that community solar makes sense. From a customer standpoint, a lot of customers are precluded from owning solar. You might live in an apartment, you might live in a condo and are not allowed to put solar panels on the roof. You might live on a site that is really shady and doesn't have good access to the sun. You might live in an old house that really isn't suitable to hold the technology required for a solar panel. On the flip side, you just may not want the aesthetics on your house. You may have a historic house, or you may just not like the look of solar panels. You may not want to deal with maintaining the panels. You may be averse to the process involved in buying panels and getting them installed on your house, and just the process involved. It's not that onerous, but some people just aren't interested in doing that. And then finally, lack of resources. You may not have the resources to allow you to go out and buy and install a solar array. However, community solar is an affordable way to get ownership of a portion of a solar asset without having the large capital outlay up front. So this is a slide that's going to talk a little bit about community solar on a national level. There are projects in 39 states and the District of Columbia, and this is as of June of this year. 2.6 gigawatts of installed capacity. 74% of the existing capacity is in 4 states: Minnesota, Florida, Massachusetts, and New York. And all this data is from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. For the state of Oklahoma, we've identified some reference projects and provided some information. The Western Farmers Electric Cooperative has 12 community solar sites in the state of Oklahoma and 1 site in Texas, for a total of just under 3 megawatts of installed capacity. The Tri-County Electric Cooperative has a solar farm in Hooker, and it's 1.5 megawatts of capacity, which is made up of 3,840 400-watt panels. Its members, and co-ops generally deal with shares. They're a member organization. Their members own shares of the co-op. So their community solar model is based on subscriptions and share ownership. So for $288, you would be buying essentially a share, which is a solar panel, and that lasts through 2041, which is the life cycle of a typical solar panel. And for that money, you would get a credit of around 5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is an adjusted over time. The Northwestern Electric Cooperative has a solar farm in Woodward, Oklahoma. It has 375 panels, which it equates to shares. Each share affords the owner 0.2667% of the monthly production of the solar facility. You're allowed to buy up to 25 shares, and they have a variable term on their program. So you could subscribe for a full 20-year term for $300 a share, $300 a panel. You could also subscribe for a 10-year term for $150 a share or $150 a panel. In return, for each share you own, you get a $28 per year credit on your bill. That amount is adjustable going forward in time, and it translates roughly to about 5 cents a kilowatt hour, give or take. The Southwest Rural Electric Association has a solar farm in Frederick, Oklahoma with 0.25 megawatt capacity. OG&E, an investor-owned utility in the state, has 4 solar farms currently operating. The last 2 just came online, I think, in October. So the Mustang, Oklahoma 5 megawatt solar farm is fully subscribed, and I believe, according to OG&E, that is the first community solar project in the state of Oklahoma. Their second project of 10 megawatts is in Covington, Oklahoma. That project is also fully subscribed. And the 2 most recent community solar projects are 5 megawatts each, and they've been created to serve the Chickasaw and Choctaw Nations, which are each subscribing to 50% of their project, with the balance being available for other subscribers. OG&E uses a solar rate. So if you want to participate in their community solar program, you would take service under a solar tariff. Under that tariff, you get your standard power for just under 10 cents a kilowatt hour. However, if you look at the on-peak summer rate, which is in effect from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., you'll see that that's about when solar starts declining in output and the sun eventually sets. You have to pay almost 24 cents a kilowatt hour for power during that window of time. They also have about a 5.6 cents per kilowatt hour rate for weekends and holidays. The East Central Electric Cooperative has a 250 kilowatt community solar project consisting of 950 panels. And again, each panel represents a share. If you purchase a share, you're entitled to 0.1% of the monthly production of the solar farm. You can buy up to 25 shares. A subscription is $336 for a term through 2041. In return, you get a credit of approximately 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour that's adjusted over time. So I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that there was a flash vote in August, and there were 3 basic questions that we'll present results for tonight. The first one was, what would you pay for community solar? The bar chart on the left shows the number of responses by type. So there are about 650 local respondents to that question. And the options ranged from, I wouldn't want community solar even if it costs less, to I would pay 50% or more. If it's 50% or more expensive, I still want community solar. The bar chart on the right shows those results. And basically the message is that it's a generally very positive response. People are very interested in community solar, or the subset of people that responded to this survey are very interested in community solar. Very few said that they weren't interested at all. And it's split between wanting it to be more cost effective versus the large majority saying they would even pay more to have community solar. The flash vote survey has a plus or minus 4% margin of error, and that hashtag or that website address that's provided is a place where you can actually go and download all the results yourself and look at them and analyze them if you so choose. The second question was, what kind of resource do you prefer? Do you prefer wind? Do you prefer solar? Or what have you? Now, most people, again, very, very positive. A lot of people wanted solar. A lot of people like wind. A lot of people just care about price. But again, the other category is also interesting in that in the other category, a lot of people said, well, I'd like both. And that wasn't an option provided. So when you break down the other category where people responded that they wanted something else and wrote in what they would like, only about less than 1%, I think 0.7% were against, not interested at all in solar or wind, and actually preferred conventional fuels. So again, the results of this question are very positive and very supportive of wind and solar. So the community solar program that the City of Stillwater is considering, again, it's working with GRDA. GRDA kind of designed this program, and it's a phased program. So first of all, the city would indicate to the Grand River Dam Authority that it's interested in community solar, about how big a site it would be interested in, and what type of pricing would be possible. GRDA will then take that information, create an RFP, and get proposals from developers with indicative pricing. GRDA would then come back to the city of Stillwater with that indicative pricing and see if the city was still interested. At that point, the city has to make a decision that would be binding. Like if the city decides to go forward at that point, they would execute an agreement with GRDA that would be binding. And then GRDA would negotiate with the developer and get things going. So this is a kind of a flow chart of how that all works. So on the left, we start with the city of Stillwater providing its level of interest to the Grand River Dam Authority. The Grand River Dam Authority puts out bids based on that information. Developers submit proposals to the Grand River Dam Authority. The Grand River Dam Authority provides that information to the city of Stillwater. And at that point, the city has to make a go or no go decision, because a go decision at that point would be binding. If they were to make a go decision, this is the roles of all the parties that would be involved. So on the left, you have the solar farm, the community solar asset. It would be on a city-owned site. The developer would actually physically own the farm, but not the land or not the site. They would own the farm, and they would be responsible for maintaining and taking care of the site, taking care of the panels, all those kinds of items. The third-party developer would be the contractual party to the GRDA agreement. So there would be a contract between GRDA and the developer for the output of that solar resource and for developing it and building it. And then GRDA would pass that power through wholesale with a slight margin under an amendment to the existing power purchase agreement that GRDA has with the city of Stillwater. The city of Stillwater would then sell that power to subscribers to the community solar program. And the reason, I guess I should say this now, the reason that this system works the best is because a third-party developer is able to take advantage of tax credits. So there's a definite tax advantage to having a third party own the solar farm, and then they pass through that savings in the rates that they provide to the city. The current topics that the city wants to hear input on is, if the city were to go through with a community solar project, what would people want to participate at? Would they want options, to be able to participate at several options of 25% of my power, 50% of my power? Or is it better just to have an all or nothing, where either you sign up for community solar and that's 100% of your needs? The other question is the length of the contract. As I mentioned with some of the cooperatives, they have full terms, like 20-year terms, and that's the only option. Some have varied terms from 10 to 25 years. You could also have a 1-year term. And then should there be exit fees? If you sign up for this program and then move or decide you don't want to be in the program anymore, should there be exit fees, and what would that look like? Because again, once the city moves forward with a community solar project, it will be built and the city will take that power. Another question is, what would be the best rate mechanism or tariff to recover the cost of that project? And then, since the city would own that power, they also own the RECs that come with that power. And we'll talk about RECs in the next section. But another question is, what should be done with those RECs? Should they be sold by the city and then the money earmarked for something? So that's another point to consider. So now we're going to talk a little bit about renewable energy certificates. So again, renewable energy certificates are a market item. They're not physical power. They're the renewable aspect of power. So they're a market-based instrument that can be bought and sold and traded. And it's a way that a lot of, say, Google's or Apple would say that we're 100% renewable right now today, years ago, because they were buying RECs. Another way to look at RECs is, this is an illustration of the sun shining on a solar panel. That solar panel is putting out megawatt hours of power. Now, RECs, technically a REC is 1 megawatt hour, but since GRDA owns lots of RECs, it can, sell smaller portions of that REC. But technically, the formal certificate is in chunks of 1 megawatt hour. So under this illustration, you'll see that, the solar panel is putting out, megawatt hours of power. That megawatt hour has two different components. It has the physical energy, and it also has the renewable aspect of that energy, which can be memorialized in a certificate. So the physical energy goes to the grid. The REC follows the renewable aspect of the energy. Renewable energy certificates are tracked by different systems. This graphic kind of shows all the different systems right now. Oklahoma doesn't have a formal system, but GRDA indicated that they use the North American Renewables Registry for their RECs, and some of their RECs are what would be considered unregistered because it was cost prohibitive to register them, but GRDA has plenty of RECs to fill any need the city would want. So the benefits of the renewable energy certificates are that wherever you are, you could buy this. So you could be in a place that's served only by a coal plant, and you could buy RECs for 100% of your energy usage, and you would create a virtual renewable portfolio. You would be virtually making your carbon footprint smaller because each REC is associated with an actual kilowatt hour or megawatt hour of power produced by a renewable resource. So it's a real bit of renewable energy that's put into the environment, and you're buying that. So you're creating a virtual clean portfolio, no matter where you are or who you are. And it's an affordable way to get renewable power. Right now, RECs are quite favorably priced, so it's actually quite a cost-effective way to get renewable power. They also allow attainment of sustainability goals. When sustainability goals are set formally for like a town or a city or an organization like a university, a lot of times, the goals, the long-term goals have, investing in renewable plants and other things. But in the short term, you can buy RECs immediately and start meeting some of your goals today, rather than waiting for the lead time of building a renewable resource or buying a renewable, a share of a renewable resource. So again, the third flash vote question was, would you buy RECs? And still, this is also a very positive one. I think RECs are a little more elusive. There's not a great lot of understanding about them. So considering all that, it's a very positive outcome. Only 21% said no way. Most, again, probably over 30% were somewhat interested. So if under the current situation, GRDA actually has renewable resources that produce renewable power, and with that power, they produce RECs. They also could purchase RECs on the market if they so desired. They would sell the RECs to the city, and the city would resell them to customers that were interested. Once the REC is sold, that megawatt hour or kilowatt hour of physical energy goes to the grid. So you've got to remember that when you're buying your REC, you're not buying physical energy, you're buying the renewable aspect of energy. And once the REC is taken away from the physical commodity of the energy is no longer considered renewable. So the city has, similar things to address with RECs. They, how should they be offered? What would people be interested in? Do they want to buy? Do they want several levels of participation? Do they want all or nothing? Should there be contract terms? Should there be exit fees? And then the final consideration would be the rate mechanism. in the case of RECs, because of the way they're bought and sold by GRDA, the most logical rate mechanism would be a PCA type rider, similar to the current PCA that the electric utility uses. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's other ways to do this. So the city would like to hear your input on renewable energy certificates. So again, this is a timeline of going forward. Today is the workshop that's kind of officially kicking off this effort. The Speak Up Stillwater site is open, and the city wants to hear any feedback. And then ultimately the plan is to take the feedback we receive, make decisions or make recommendations of the way we think it's the best way forward, publish those around January 7th or so, see if there's any additional feedback, and then make a presentation, a recommendation to the trustees in at the end of January or in spring. Again, this is RECs are a more instantaneous thing. The community solar project is a long-term effort, and so this would be the first phase of that, and it would be an ongoing phase for several years to come. So with that, I will turn it over to questions.
All right. So at this point, if anyone would like to ask Lisa a question about the community solar or RECs, just go ahead and hit the raise hand button. That should be in the bottom middle of your screen if you're on a computer, and I'll promote you to a panelist one by one. Just a reminder that once you've been promoted to a panelist, you're going to remain a panelist. We just asked that you be respectful of others and mute yourself if you're not speaking, that kind of stuff. So if anyone has a question for Lisa, now would be the time to hit the raise hand button. All right, first up is Robin.
You're muted.
Okay, well, if Robin, I'm going to give her a second to figure out audio or video for her question. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and add another panelist. All right, Henri. Oh, you're muted.
Okay,
There you are, yeah.
Everyone hear me? I just want to thank you for your presentation again. The one question I have, I'm noticing that a lot of the solar projects in the state of Oklahoma or elsewhere for community solar, they seem to be on a subscription basis. And in our case, we have a third-party investor or developer for the solar farm itself. And it seems to me like we don't necessarily have to follow that pricing model or that model of charging a subscription. The subscription to me seems like it's more to offset the initial capital cost or investment into that solar farm. Whereas in our case, we could actually approach the sign up for power to just based on the rate that we charge. Or some kind of a solar tariff, as you might put it, rather than trying to charge an annual subscription fee. It seems to me that might be a simpler way of approaching getting people to sign up for that for the community solar project. Anyway, that's my comment. But if you could address the subscription, why they choose to do the subscription fee.
Well, and that's a good point. And Stillwater would probably not do a subscription. The examples, the most prevalent examples in the state that I was able to find are all cooperatives. And cooperatives are a horse of a different color. There's several types of utilities: the municipal model, which is the City of Stillwater, the investor-owned model, which is OG&E, and then cooperatives. And by their nature, cooperatives, originally, to be a cooperative, you had to be very, very small. And because of that, capital was a big problem. And so their business model is kind of based on having members of the cooperative who contribute capital and then own shares in the cooperative. So that's really how they're designed, and that's the way they do business. So I agree that the share model is probably not good for the City of Stillwater. And from a cost of service and rate design perspective, the contract with the developer would likely be stated in terms of like $1 per megawatt price. Like with every megawatt hour we produce, we get X dollars per megawatt hour. So in all likelihood, any rate structure would kind of mimic that. It hasn't been decided, but that would probably be the best approach. The question still remains of what should be a minimum term. Just because it's if the city is going to commit to this 20-year resource, people need to commit to some level, and it probably is going to be a minimum of a year, just because of the administrative effort in signing up a contract, signing up a citizen, tracking their power use, and administrative burden. But we're looking for input on that as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it did. Thank you.
Did you have a question, Robin? All right, you can go ahead now.
Okay, there. I was having some trouble unmuting myself.
It's hard. I almost just did it.
Well, I had the same question as Henri, but I'll ask further. So I did notice that it looks like all the community solar in Oklahoma is either cooperatives or investor-owned utilities. So are there any examples of municipal-owned utilities that are doing community solar that you know of? And how? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there are a lot of municipal utilities doing community solar. I wasn't able to locate specific ones in Oklahoma. That doesn't mean they don't exist. It's just you almost have to go utility by utility, city by city. So it would be I thought there'd be better registries, frankly, when I got into this. But yes, throughout the country, a lot of municipal utilities have community solar farms, and they're dealt with in from a rate perspective in different ways. But in general, municipal utilities have a similar approach to rate design. And so I think it would mimic what we've talked about here, where the developer commits to $1 per megawatt hour price, and then that is the basis for the rate, plus a margin markup for administrative overhead type things.
Okay. And I just wondered what happens if people subscribe and then sign up for a certain amount, a certain time period. What happens if they move?
That's a question that needs to be considered and addressed, and that kind of ties into the minimum commitment that if because that's a real concern. The reality is once the community farm is developed, the city will be taking that power. They're committed and obligated to and have to pay for it. So those are very real questions of what do we do if people don't live up to their commitment, or the terms expire and no one else signs up.
Yeah. Okay. Could we look at I'd like to look at slide 11 and slide 12. slide 11 first. Okay, so I don't understand. So the Grand River Dam Authority, this is their energy production for 2019 by fuel type. So what's the difference between these two charts?
So the Southwest Power Pool, which is the pie chart on the right, is it's a multi-state power pool. It's a big marketplace that transacts power. So the Grand River Dam Authority has its own generating resources, but in order to balance the system out, they're constantly buying and selling power. Like if they have extra power, they'll sell it to the power pool. If they're running short, they'll buy power. It's called balancing, because you can never predict exactly how much power you're going to use. It's a constantly moving target from second to second in 15-second increments. So basically the pie chart on the left shows the power that Stillwater received from the Grand River Dam Authority in 2019. And the orange pie piece that's labeled other is primarily comprised of power market purchases. And that would be the pie chart on the right. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. And can we look at slide 12? Future energy mix. Okay. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. So in the pie chart on the right, when is this predicted?
I'm sorry, you dropped out. I couldn't hear the question.
Okay. In the pie chart on the right, do we know when this is this, when is this predicted to?
So what this means is that these developers have submitted requests to the power pool to interconnect with their system. Once those requests are processed, and they first need an approval to interconnect, and then a lead time could be 6 to 12 months. And I'm not sure how long the interconnection process is for the Southwest Power Pool. Lauren, do you know anything about that?
I don't, but this is, this is what potentially could be brought into the market. I mean, it's sitting in the queue waiting. These projects aren't guaranteed to be 100% completed. A lot of these investors will sit and wait for the federal government, tax credits. Is there extra money out there? And it's a big economic driven engine. But I think it's meant to show just, how much renewable energy is slated for the market if it becomes available, versus how much less natural gas down here at 3%, zero coal, right? And so the market all around us is it's just showing that this is what the future could hold for us.
And speaking as someone who's been in the industry a long time, and I think Lauren has as well, this is a shocking, this is shocking. This is amazing. Like, you wouldn't have seen this 5 or 6 years ago even. This is really showing that economics are driving these decisions and renewables are here.
Yeah, in a recent SPP webinar I was on, they're actually starting to talk about exporting from the SPP to the east and the west wind. It's that kind of thing. So we're certainly wind rich in this region, and the SPP market stretches from Texas to Canada and about the swath of Oklahoma. So it's a huge region.
My understanding is that there's hardly any major projects, energy projects anymore, that are focused on fossil sources, and they're all focused on wind or solar or energy storage. That's basically what it's becoming. Many parts of the world, it's actually the cheapest source of power, from my understanding. So.
And what I will add to that equation is you will always have to have some what we would call a firming resource, because of the variable nature. The wind doesn't blow 100% of the time, the sun doesn't shine. You're definitely going to you're going to see more renewables, but along with that, you're going to see storage or Natural gas is a good firming resource, and by firming, it can cycle quickly if all of a sudden, the sun goes down for a couple days. So but the primary fuels will be clean, green renewables, but they're always going to need that, and so when they have a breakthrough on storage, which we're having leaps and bounds every year, that will be the game changer. You're seeing it happen already.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to note that while GRDA, they're heavy in the renewables, all of these systems are tied together. So GRDA, all of us are tied into the SPP power pool, and we're all connected with everybody. So it's a big mix of all these different resources. And while GRDA, they push a lot of renewables into the market, we got to look at SPP as the whole and what's really going on right in Oklahoma, right? And so this graph, this chart on the left is actually Oklahoma, not the whole SPP region. And so future builds out of wind and solar are just exploding across our whole corridor. So it's pretty impressive to see when that comes to fruition. We're getting renewables now, and we're just continue to get more and more as more of these facilities come online.
Hey guys, I'd like to jump in really fast. We do have a couple of comments in our chat. So Lisa, Lauren, you guys should be able to see those. Lisa, you might have to stop sharing your screen to open up the chat box.
Okay.
So I think the first question I see revolves around kind of what I just said there, and I may have misspoke on the flash vote survey. I put a question that said, do you realize that the majority of your power comes from renewables already? And I think that's what more I was alluding to is when the wind's blowing and especially when the wind's blowing, we're receiving a lot of renewables now. And I probably should have added a few words about when the wind's blowing or maybe not use the word majority, but.
Hey, Lauren, can you read the question first so that the attendees know what you're answering?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I thought everybody was seeing the same question.
Yeah, I was like only the panelists can see the question. So.
And
okay.
I can't see the question. I'm technology challenged.
Yeah, Lisa also would need the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. It said the flash vote was misleading and therefore the results of the vote should be considered not valid. The results of the votes are being misrepresented. And then I think it said something else. So I think that's what that was referring to.
Okay. And there's also another question that says, does the power from GRDA go into the SPP and and then we are supplied from the SPP?
And so I saw that question come up. And I kind of answered that last one.
Yeah,
all the
I noticed that.
Tied together. GRDA is tied into the SPP power pool, just like Stillwater is. And so really it's a mix of all of these resources in the market. And we will continue to be more and more saturated with renewable energy right through the corridor that we live in Oklahoma.
And I put up a slide that has the location of the data. So I understand the point that the person made about the information in the question itself, but also the actual data is available. And so it's in this presentation that will be loaded onto the website.
Yeah, I also put a link in the chat so that people could click on it and go straight to the results.
It's not clear to me what it is that they're saying is being misrepresented.
I believe the point was that the question was stated in terms of, Stillwater receives, I don't know how much of its power from renewables right now. And that's true during certain periods of, the day or, when certain conditions are happening.
And I believe that due to that question, the results were misrepresented, I guess.
So the results may have been skewed, but they're not definitive. We want your input. We're going through this process. So the flash vote was one piece of the pie. It's not determinant of the outcome.
I think one of the things that concern people that tend to be anti-government or anti-renewables is that they're afraid that their rates are going to go up. That's why they're probably sitting here. A lot of them are listening to this and saying, "Oh, they're going to try to raise our rates." And what I'd like to say, as part of the task force, and I think it's probably accurate to say that we're not going out to try to raise people's rates by doing this. We're trying to bring renewable energy into the community and sign up people that are interested in renewable energy and not forcing people to take it. And so people that don't want this type of project won't be, I don't expect them to be financially harmed by this project at all. I think it's pretty safe to say that.
And the point I would also make is when you look at this chart of interconnection requests into the Southwest Power Pool, this is driven purely by economics. The people wanting to build these projects are doing it for the economics of, they wouldn't be building resources that aren't going to be dispatched in the market. And the market, the Southwest Power Pool, dispatches the lowest cost resources first. So it's definitely, there's a shift. 5-8 years ago, they were definitely much more expensive, but things have changed.
So if these interconnection requests are granted and this mix of power energy production by fuel type comes to be, how might the left-hand pie chart change? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I think it's this left hand. It's GRDA. It would probably turn a large portion of that orange piece of the pie to wind and solar.
And I think as well, the right pie chart too, it would increase.
Yeah, coal
and
would
natural
pretty
gas
much
would
go
decrease.
away. Yeah.
Basically, I think you could just multiply the 12% times the 40% wind or 11% coal, 12% times the 46% natural gas, and then add it to the Grand River Dam. Just average it out.
Sort of. I'll qualify that.
Okay.
One of the things you might see, because this is a dynamic system, right? And so one of the things that GRDA is doing is making decisions about when it should throttle back its own resources and buy power from the market. It's always looking to minimize its costs. I mean, as a good utility, that's what it's doing. And so what you also might see is that natural gas percentage start to go down and be replaced by renewables because they'll be cheaper at a dispatch level from the power pool. Mm-hmm. It all depends on the price of natural gas, right?
And Lauren, we do have another question in the chat for you that says, did you see it?
Yep, and I'll answer that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So we had a meeting yesterday with another group, and Henri, to your point about, in the perfect world, we would want to build a system that was fully subscribed, and I'm just using that as a generic term, and that there was no socialization of any stranded cost or anything like that out there for energy that wasn't subscribed to. So there's risk with any project. At the SUA, we have to manage that risk and figure out what's the best options. I know that I've talked to you personally about some ideas you had for rates and that we could help to ensure that it's fully subscribed. But there is always that risk out there. But I think that there's ways to minimize that risk, essentially in the sense of like GRDA, they're okay with doing this in tranches. We don't have to go full board, jump in to do all we can right now. We could go a little here, a little there to see, can we fully subscribe these systems? There could be benefits. There could be pros and cons to both ways. If we waited for the second tranche to come out, sometimes this stuff gets political. If you have a president that's strong in renewables, They could increase tax incentives, right? So the cost curve could come down and it's looking better. Okay, I got into this going down. Flip side is you get another president there, they're adverse and it goes up. So it's kind of there's a lot of things to weigh, to consider and to manage that risk. And so,
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to point out though is we're talking about only 1 to 2 megawatt project, and
Yeah.
the annual power consumption of SUA that's like a drop, a spit in the bucket. It's like nothing. And so based on the interest level of people wanting to incorporate renewable into their power bill, and if we expand also to try to sign up corporate customers, commercial customers,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're going to be way oversubscribed.
Yeah.
And if we can be oversubscribed, then that pretty much tells me that people that aren't interested in this project won't have to pay any, will not be penalized at all with their rates. So
that's a very valid point, because any models we've been looking at is really just residential. We haven't touched commercial and the other, and they could take big chunks and stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if we just come up with the right way of signing up people across the spectrum, we're going to have more demand than we can supply them with. So that's why I feel so confident that it shouldn't be a sticking point for us. It won't hold us back.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Either people who want to be promoted to panelists or in the chat? I'm not seeing any hands.
Exactly when would the rate discussion really, the details of the rates and the way we're going to sign people up, or that process, when would that begin? After the, sometime in January?
Yeah, based on the input that we receive, and then we're currently having discussions with Dana and her group about the technology, like what can the city actually do with its current technology. So it's kind of an iterative process.
Dana would be who? And she would be in the customer service department?
Yes, Dana's the customer service director. Yeah.
Okay. So
and we're trying to figure out the administrative side, and
like how you can
something that's easy to administer.
Right.
And so from what we've learned the last week or so, it can get pretty complicated. So we're trying to work through all that.
We're talking about the way to handle billing, for example, So the inherent challenge with like a community solar project, the inherent challenge is that by nature, variable resources give variable output. So as you saw with the even the cooperative examples that I shared, you're given a percent of output rather than a definite kilowatt hour amount, and that's because you just can't predict how much energy is going to be there. You can make really good guesses over like a year how much energy is going to be there, but in any given month, output may change drastically for different reasons. So it becomes, trying to match up the people that have signed up versus the energy that came out of the plant on a monthly basis is a bit of an administrative challenge. It's not insurmountable. And it's, it's a behind the scenes kind of, issue that needs to be hammered out. But by its nature, there will always be some sort of reconciliation that has to happen after the fact based on the conditions, during the previous month.
Right. I see.
And that's not the case with like natural gas or anything else. It's like you turn it on, it produces power, you know how much, you turn it off. So it's a different technology.
Right.
With the With the other community solar projects in Oklahoma, how much of power that customers are using is being generated? What percentage of, is that a question that you can answer?
I don't know. I know that under their the arrangements for OG&E, you sign up to be on that tariff, and it appears based on their information on their website that you are, all your power is delivered under that tariff for OG&E.
Okay.
100%. For the co-ops, you buy shares. And so that it just depends on how many shares you buy versus how much power you use.
Okay.
All right, is that it? Everybody got your questions answered? I don't see anything else on the back end.
And I would add, if you come up with questions later, you know how to get in touch with us.
Absolutely,
can
that's my
respond
next point.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
you're good. No, that's
Nope.
perfect, Lauren. If you have any other questions, you can always go to our Speak Up Stillwater page. We do have a question section there. So you can ask your questions. I'll send them straight to Lisa or whoever is appropriate for the question. And you can always get them answered right there. I'll put a link to that one in the chat as well. And if you're still interested in distributed generation, we have the recording of the last workshop on there as well. And our survey on that, if you'd like to give your input on distributed generation rates, is open until December 31st. So all of that can be found on our Speak Up Stillwater page. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.